Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. I'm Ryan Wormley, joined as I am every Tuesday by Andrew Erickson. This is part 2 of our buys and sells episode. If you missed part 1, it was on the running backs. We also did a recap of the Monday night doubleheader. Be sure to check that out on YouTube or audio, wherever you get your podcast. This is our wide receivers buys and sells episode. We will also squeeze in a couple quarterbacks and tight ends as well. Erickson, before we dive in, I want to let the people know that if they want a chance to win the ultimate symbol of fantasy glory, the Fantasy Football Championship belt, courtesy of our good friends at Trophy Smack, the #1 destination for epic fantasy football hardware. And this is your moment. This massive gold-plated belt is built to make a statement. It's bold, it's heavy, and it's guaranteed to turn heads in your league. Don't just win your championship, wear it. To enter, all you need to do is subscribe to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel right now. Drop a comment below on any of our videos. That is it. We will be announcing a winner right here on the channel, so be sure to turn on notifications so you don't miss your chance to claim this championship belt and flex on your entire league. Erickson, who is your #1 wide receiver to buy?
Staying on brand for those watching the video here, rocking my Patriots sweatshirt. It's Stefon Diggs. That is the wide receiver that I want to buy.
If I didn't have my background here, I could take out a little Maryland something and be on brand with you as well on Diggs. We could be tag teaming.
We're hand holding here on buying Stefon Diggs, and of course it comes after the week where I finally feel confident. Again, Diggs top 20 wide receiver this week, gonna smash against the Saints. And it's basically every other receiver on the Patriots that pops off for a monster game. Kayshon Boutte catching 2 touchdowns. Demario Douglas would have caught 2 touchdowns if one of those wasn't called back on a stupid penalty. Speaking of penalties, Stefon Diggs. He lost out on a 51-yard gain because of an offensive pass interference call, which was absolutely bogus. So the final box score for Diggs was really bad. 3 catches for 28 yards on 3 targets. But like I said, he had a 51-yard gain wiped off the table. If that catch stands, then you're not upset about a 4-catch game for over 70 yards. That's a fine game. Again, he's not going to score a touchdown every single week. He actually hasn't scored yet this season, but these are the numbers that we chase. This is why we were pounding the table for buy Tetairoa McMillan. He's going to catch a touchdown eventually. And of course, it comes in the game where he has the worst receiving statistics. He catches the 2 touchdowns. But it's the process play. Diggs is eventually going to find the end zone. And when you're attached to the supernova quarterback that is Drake Maye, good things are going to happen. I want parts of this Patriots offense. They have one of the easiest schedules remaining, and I think that Diggs is the #1 wide receiver for this team rest of season. Yes, Boutte's going to have big games because Drake Maye is that good, but Boutte is a little bit more up and down because of the way they use him, more of a downfield target. And that's why I think that Diggs is the best buy low for this Patriots offense. Through 6 games, Diggs is still PFF's 6th highest graded wide receiver. And had that 51-yard catch stood, he'd be averaging this year over 3 yards per route run. Pretty good for a guy coming off a torn ACL at age 31. So I think that this game for those other receivers for the Patriots has really created a good opportunity to buy on Diggs, because after last week, it seemed like it was going to be impossible because he had just looked so good against the Panthers and Bills. And I think that if people are just looking at the box score, man, Diggs sucked. No, like that, if that 51-yard catch stands, like we're not feeling any type of remorse or whatever for Diggs. So he's a screaming buy for me.
Let me ask you, so I've made this trade in Dynasty, which obviously is not the context through which we're discussing him, but it's a win-now team and Diggs is older, so I think it can be helpful for just thinking about value of a guy. But the reason I mentioned it's Dynasty is because I traded a pick in this scenario, not a player. But again, it's a win-now team, he's older, so thinking about it just in terms of what he can do for me this year. I have Malik Neighbors, CeeDee Lamb, Garrett Wilson, Emeka Egbuka on this team. So I need wide receiver help. But it's a win now team, or at least it was going into the season, because partly because I have Drake Maye has kept me a win now team. I traded a late 2nd round pick for Diggs. What do you think about that in terms of the value he's going to bring? Again, that's not a long-term deal, even though it's Dynasty because he's older. But for what he can bring you this year, does that sound like a reasonable value for him?
I think so. Yeah. I think that's a pretty good value for Diggs. So many of these late 2nd round, early 3rd round rookie picks turn into absolutely nothing. So I think getting a stable asset with Diggs, who kind of one of those players that can kind of just retire on your roster probably. You know, people are always kind of ready to write off the older wide receivers. And, I mean, Adam Thielen is still kicking around, right? Like, he's someone that still does enough where, hey, I'm in a pinch, I got to play this guy this week. Injuries happen, as we've seen all throughout this season. So I think having Diggs for that type of cost is a good move to make, especially if you need receiver production right now.
Ignoring what he's done already this season, just looking from week 7 forward, where do you think he will be? Where do you think, not where are you ranking him? Because part of rank is, thinking about things like market value and what you can trade him for, and you're trying to kind of balance that. But specifically, like, if you had to predict where he will finish among receivers rest of season, just from here going forward, he will be wide receiver what, in your opinion?
Can I phone a friend, i.e. you, and ask me or tell me what his rank is right now? Like, what
his
is he
rank?
Or
his
no, what
rank
is
right now?
What is his rank in points per game right now?
Sorry, you mean like what he's done, or you mean what his rank is in our rest of season consensus rankings?
What has he done?
What he has done so far is he is wide receiver 32.
Okay.
Through 6 games, that's in half PPR scoring. Bearing in mind that weeks 2 and 3 are dragging that down, where he didn't, he had 32 yards and then 23 yards respectively. In those weeks with no touchdown, he was wide receiver 70 and wide receiver 71 in those 2 weeks. But including those, with those baked in, he is still wide receiver 32 on the season. And what he's done on a game by game basis is wide receiver 33, 70, 71, 21, 5, and 56.
And he's done that all without scoring any touchdowns. So that's the point that I want to make. Correct. Because that's
that 56, to your point earlier, would be a lot higher if not for that penalty wiping off the 50-yard catch.
Right. So I think that he, barring injury, I think he's a lock for a top 24 finish. And
top 24.
I would, if I wanted to be more aggressive,
top 20. Could you get that high?
Yeah, I think I would move him up to top 20 because he should. I think 5-6 touchdowns rest of the way. I mean, if Drake Maye continues to play at this high of a level, then that shouldn't be that outlandish. I mean, Demario Douglas is catching more touchdowns than Diggs. Booty's catching more touchdowns than Diggs. Is that going to last, especially with how bad the run game is? Are they going to continue to feed Ramondre Stevenson at the goal line for him not to score? Or are they going to let Drake Maye rip it to Stefon Diggs in the red zone? I think I would bet on the latter happening. So given that the yardage has given you a nice floor with Diggs, you see a ceiling case with the touchdowns coming along the line. Touchdown regression should hit him in a positive way rest of the season. So I would say, yeah, top 24 at a minimum, if not top 20 if he can hit that ceiling.
Give me your next wide receiver to buy.
I'm going with Ricky Pearsall. Now, keep in mind that he is dealing with an injury, so that's why I want to come into that caveat that you do want to monitor the injury reports with Pearsall. I do not want to give advice about buying an injured player like I did with Trey Benson a couple weeks ago, which I still feel very, very bad about. So I'm trying to not make the same mistake twice. So just, again, keep eyes on the Pearsall injury reports.
I think you mentioned this last week, too, that you were not trying to make the mistake again. So it's clearly still sitting with you.
No, because it really irked
now.
me. It really, really irked me because there were people in the Discord that had made moves for Trey Benson, and then he got put on injured reserve, and that just made me very, very upset. So I don't want to give advice like that where the player was injured and I didn't know that he was injured. We didn't really know. There wasn't that much news about it. But regardless, I want to be better. Pearsall is expected to practice this week, though. So I am more optimistic about him coming back a little bit healthier. And I just have been impressed with what we saw from Pearsall. I don't want to forget about what he did when he was on the field. And I think that we have to remember that this Kendrick Bourne renaissance is being fueled a lot by the quarterback being Mac Jones. Like, these guys have a connection. They played 3 years together in New England. That's not the same situation. The offense is not going to be the same when it's Brock Purdy under center and Ricky Pearsall is back in the offense. So if anything, the Bourne-Jones connection is just encouragement about, hey, this 49ers offense is going to have to throw a ton. Fred Warner just got put on injured reserve. This defense has been eviscerated by injuries along with the offense. So I think you're having more projected shootouts. We saw the connection with Purdy and Pearsall earlier in the season. And as a reminder, Pearsall's been really effective this year. I mean, he was top 15 in receiving yards per game entering last week, despite having missed a game. So far this year, PFF's 15th highest graded wide receiver in just 4 games played. We know Juwan Jennings is playing through a ton of injuries right now. We don't know how long he or how effective he is going to be. It wasn't great last week. And Brandon Ayuk is still not back. He said that he's eyeing a week 10 return. But again, it still takes guys a ramp-up period even when they first return to field. So we may not be getting 100% Brandon Ayuk until December or late November at the earliest. So I'm going to buy on Ricky Pearsall from what I saw earlier in the year and Brock Purdy presumably taking his job back under center, which I think is going to happen. I don't know if Mac Jones is going to be the quarterback once Purdy's healthy.
What would you be looking to give up for somebody like Pearsall right now?
I think that anyone that has some starter appeal, maybe like a Jacoby Myers would be a player that I would be willing to give up for Ricky Pearsall. I think that he probably works better as kind of like a throw-in, where maybe you're making a 1-for-1 trade, and to kind of sweeten the deal, they give you Ricky Pearsall in return. So injured players are always kind of tough to gauge the trade value on, because you're just kind of assuming that you should get some type of discount with them because, oh, this player is injured, but some managers aren't willing to give that up because they're valuing the player as if they were healthy. So I'm interested to see where he would be in the rest of season rankings, because I know that's another area that I also struggle with when I'm trying to rank.
I was going to bring that up. Sorry to cut you off. I was going to bring that up. He's higher than you might have guessed in rest of season rankings. He's wide receiver 24 right now in the consensus rest of season rankings. That has dropped, several. It's fallen 5 spots in the last week, so he was even higher. But right now, yeah, he's wide receiver 24. He's ahead of Diggs, which I think is an interesting, like, who would you rather have rest of season? They're a few spots apart, but he's in the range of like Quentin Johnston, Michael Pittman Jr., Marvin Harrison Jr., DK Metcalf. Those are the kind of the names sandwiching Pearsall right now. I expected him to be ranked as a high wide receiver 3, not a low wide receiver 2. So I was surprised to see it. Well, I mean, he's very close to that.
I think maybe this is a ranking that is encouraging people to buy Ricky Pearsall. Like, this is where he should be ranked, but I think so, that the trade value for him is probably going to be less than where we have him ranked, which, again, going back to, this is why we look at the rankings, because, hey, the rankings really like Ricky Pearsall, but the trade manager or the guy that has Ricky Pearsall doesn't really like him that much. Would you trade Jameson Williams for Ricky Pearsall? That's definitely a trade that you could probably get done.
I would, yeah.
Yeah.
I would do that.
So.
Okay. Pearsall and Diggs seem like strong buys. You can use the trade analyzer at fantasypros.com/myplaybook or on the Fantasy Pros app to instantly evaluate how any trade will affect your team for this week, the rest of the season, or even in Dynasty. Erickson, who is your first wide receiver to sell this week?
Yeah, I don't love my 2 wide receiver sells because I like the players, but unfortunately we have to just play the market, and when guys are balling out, this is just usually a good time to try to cash out. So George Pickens is the number 1 here for me. He's the wide receiver 3 in points per game this season. And it's just all about, what happens to his production when CeeDee Lamb returns. So I think that if you have George Pickens, I think it just makes sense to try to float him out on trades, because I think that his production is going to tail off a little bit. I don't think, because he's not going to be the number 1 in his offense anymore. And I think that does matter. Lamb is going to command targets. Jake Ferguson is going to command targets in his offense. Kevontae Turpin is going to command targets. He's also been missing a lot of games too. So George Pickens has been 3rd in terms of expected fantasy points scored above expectation this season. So again, I don't want to dissuade what the player has done. He's been absolutely fantastic for Dallas, filling in for CeeDee Lamb as a wide receiver 1. But if there are some managers that think that this is going to be the case all year long, then I would probably try to sell. So this is really more of like a process play where, again, I just don't think there's the exact production right now is sustainable. And if you can get someone to pay for that, then I would try to at least entertain the idea of moving him.
Isn't it just hard though? Like when you hit on a player and they're so far outperforming where you drafted them, and you feel like, oh, I'm going to plant my flag on a guy like George Pickens this year, and then it works, and he's he's also just like a fun player to watch, right? Yes. He's one of the most chaotic,
I
hate
wild
that I
had to
receivers.
Put him on the list here, but like
it's like hard emotionally to move him almost.
Yeah, no, it is. But
he's wide receiver 15 rest of the season in consensus, by the way.
Yeah, and I think that's telling, because he's wide receiver 3 in points per game. Like he has not been anywhere near he has not been outside the top 12 in weekly rankings, but we're trying to capture the idea of when Lamb comes back. And this is a player I've gotten a lot of questions about in Discord about, what do I do with George Pickens? Should I try to trade him? And I do think it really depends on the offer, because if someone's lowballing you for Pickens, then, you just tell them, nah, no thanks. But if someone is playing full freight for, hey, this is going to continue, because some managers are like that. And some people want the George Pickens. They love how fun he is and how he's making all these contested catches and making big plays for the Dallas Cowboys. So yeah, I think you just need to put him on the block and kind of see what you get to buy, because I think that he has a pretty wide range of outcomes with his trade value.
He's not a sell at any cost, but I do think you're right that he is the type of player that all it takes is one offer, and you might get one offer that is, hey, this is an overpay, and they're blowing me away in a way that I should take this deal, even though it's maybe not fun to trade away a guy like Pickens with what he's done so far this year. All right, who's your next wide receiver to sell? And I know you want to kind of loop a couple names into this one.
Yeah, so I'm going to just talk about both Eagles wide receivers. So DeVonta Smith and A.J. Brown. So when Worm originally sent me over the show sheet to kind of pick the guys that I wanted, I put DeVonta Smith in there. And it kind of feels like it's like a cop-out for me, because for those that have following the show all year long, I was definitely lower on consensus than DeVonta Smith. And I always talk about how his numbers are not nearly as good when Dallas Goedert and A.J. Brown are both healthy in the lineup. I constantly bet the DeVonta Smith under on his receptions every time those guys are playing, and usually it works out. But when I took a deeper look into how he's performed this year versus like A.J. Brown, he's actually been more efficient than A.J. Brown has been this year. He has a better yards per route run. He's a much better catch rate than A.J. Brown does. He's playing a lot more out of the slot. So I don't know if he's really the guy you want to necessarily sell from this offense. If anything, you just want to hold him, because he's going to have a bigger weeks. If Jalen Hurts hits him on Thursday Night Football for that long touchdown, then he'd be a much easier sell to make, because he had this monster game, because he had this monster touchdown catch. But coming off a bad game, it's really hard to sell players like DeVonta Smith. Whereas A.J. Brown, he's seen a lot of volume over the last couple weeks. He did have a decent game against the Giants, 6 for 80 on 9 targets. But when you look under the hood for Brown, it's worse than it is for DeVonta Smith. So even though he's having more targets, his expected fantasy points per game, his points per game are worse than DeVonta Smith. He's averaging a career low in yards per route run at 1.32. And the reason I kind of backed off Smith a little bit as my initial sell was I feel like A.J. Brown still could get traded. There has been some rumblings about, this is from Diana Rossini from The Athletic. She was talking about how it's possible that he could get dealt. And as I talked about when I first started the Eagles conversation, was Smith turns into a top 15 receiver when A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert are not in the picture. So there is that path where he does get there, and the access to getting Smith versus A.J. Brown, their trade values are not anywhere near. I don't think they're close at all. But when you just look at who's been more productive this year, it's actually been DeVonta Smith. He's actually been the more productive guy, although A.J. Brown has been kind of gobbling up more of the targets. That really hasn't helped him score more fantasy points this year than Smith. So that's kind of my long-winded answer when I'm talking about these Eagles guys. Worm, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on if they are indeed sells. Again, the vibes are also really bad with Philadelphia right now. So is this the time to sell? The matchup next week against the Minnesota Vikings is brutal for A.J. Brown. Again, he's operating more as the outside wide receiver. The Vikings have allowed the least fantasy points to perimeter receivers this season. So if Smith has a better game than A.J. Brown against Minnesota, that will not shock me whatsoever. So I'm kind of tossing my hands up a little bit with these guys, but I think that you get more trading A.J. Brown than DeVonta Smith. So I feel like he is the better sell. But what are your thoughts, Worm, on this complex Eagles room?
I feel like if they weren't facing the Vikings, then I would be sitting here saying, I want to see if we get another big game from A.J. Brown. If we get a big game from A.J. Brown this week, then I would want to sell.
Right, you're just you're just waiting to sell.
Yes, I would hold.
That's how I feel
in the immediate future, with the plans to sell in the near future.
Yeah.
Just get 120 yards and a touchdown or two, and okay, I'm selling. Convince somebody that he's back, and it's not that I think it's impossible that we could get a very high level, production from A.J. Brown throughout the rest of the season. It's that I just don't want to be the guy holding the bag if it doesn't happen. I don't want to ride that roller coaster. I want to let somebody else pay up for the name brand and for the Eagles and for, he's back. The problem is that they're facing the Vikings, and I think it's, to your point, very unlikely that we get that this week. And then now all of a sudden you're only a couple weeks away from the end of the fantasy regular season, right? It gets late pretty quick in fantasy. So if you're okay, well, he's going to have a bad week against the Vikings, so you don't want to, buy him then. You want to be able to sell him coming off of a better game. Then all of a sudden you're okay, well, maybe he has a good game in week 8, and then you're selling ahead of week 9. Again, that's like a month before the end of the regular season. So you start to run out of time pretty quickly. The Vikings matchup makes it tricky because I agree with you that I don't think he's going to do particularly well in this matchup. Smith is somebody that I just don't really have a lot of this year, partially from doing so many shows with you. And if AJ Brown were to get traded in real life, that would obviously drastically change things. So I think I'd be more inclined to hold Smith long term, whereas Brown is more of like a hold short term, if that distinction makes sense. I don't have a ton of conviction, but like I don't feel like I can come in here and say, oh, you're confused about this, Erickson? Let me clarify things for you. I have the skeleton key insight here to figure it out. I think it is a confusing, tricky situation, and it is correct to say kind of need to just throw your hands up, at least in the near term.
Yeah, and that's also why you put these guys on the block, and maybe someone else is more confident that, hey, no, AJ Brown is going to fix it. He is going to improve. I'm confident in the talent because I think both these guys are super talented receivers, right? There's a reason why Smith turns into a top 15 guy when he gets the volume. He just hasn't had the volume in this offense when those other guys are healthy. AJ Brown has been getting the volume, but he has not been efficient. So I guess I'm more concerned about AJ Brown just in general rest of the season. And the thing is, as great as the ceiling cases are for AJ Brown, the floor with him has also been really bad. And when you're thinking fantasy playoffs, you can't get stuck with an AJ Brown dud game in the fantasy football playoffs.
If you're in the fantasy semifinals, are you going to feel confident starting him? You have
like,
to. You cannot justify not starting him. It's AJ Brown. You're in the fantasy semifinals, but you're not going to feel confident.
Right.
Unless a lot changes between now and then.
And again, when we're talking about changes, who do you think changes benefit more? Is it Smith or Brown? And I think I'm kind of leaning towards maybe it's Smith that actually ends up benefiting more if things drastically change in Philly. They trade Brown. Because like I said, so far this year, Smith has been the more efficient receiver, playing out of the slot, getting favorable looks. And if he gets that touchdown last week from Jalen Hurts, then he's outscoring AJ Brown significantly through 6 weeks of the NFL season.
If I was trying to simplify it, I think here's the way I would look at it in terms of parsing between the two of them, not picking what to do with each of them in a vacuum, but kind of deciding who the better sell is I am confused about what this production is going to look like going forward, but I'm equally confused about them. AJ Brown is going to get more in return. So I'd rather sell Brown because I don't really know what it's going to look like. So if I'm going to sell one, it's the guy that is ranked higher in rest of season consensus rankings. People are going to see that and they're going to want more for that. He has a bigger name brand value. He was drafted a lot higher. Like for all those reasons, I think he's the guy that you're more likely to get more for. So if I'm looking at this with confusion equally for both, I might as well sell the guy that's going to get the bigger return.
Do you trade AJ Brown for Stefon Diggs and Ricky Pearsall?
Yes, for both of them, I would do that.
Yeah. I feel like
I
feel like I get more shots on
I don't
net.
think I would for them individually. I don't think I could pull the trigger, but I would for them together.
Yeah.
I think that's good. All right, let's go to our quarterbacks and tight ends. We loop these guys together because there's not as much to dive into here. So give me one buy from these two positions and one sell.
I'm going to go with buying Brock Bowers. So Bowers has been injured basically the entire season after week 1, but the Raiders finally decided to not play him just last week. The Raiders have a week 8 bye week, so I wouldn't expect Bowers to make a return at least until week 9. Pete Carroll was kind of non-committal about committing to him playing this week. So I think it's a couple weeks till we see Brock Bowers, and I think this is a good buy low window on the Raiders tight end. I think that when we're talking about trades, right, who could get also traded is Jacoby Myers. He demanded a trade before the season started, and with the Raiders team kind of going nowhere in terms of win-loss, I think that he could get dealt for a lot of teams that are looking for wide receivers. He's in a contract year. They drafted 2 receivers this year in the draft. They have no long-term commitment to Myers. If he gets dealt, then I just think the target floodgates could just open up for Brock Bowers. And the thing is, if he comes back healthy, right, he could be a difference maker. I think that whenever you're making trades, you want to always be on the side of, is someone I'm acquiring someone that could really be a league winner, a difference maker? And I think Brock Bowers has that if he is healthy. And I don't want to forget about it just because he struggled this year. I think it was all related to his injury. Now, I'm not a doctor and I'm not a soothsayer in terms of I know that his knee is 100%, but if he pulls a Puka Nacua from last year where I was so excited for Puka and then he immediately gets hurt week 1 and then you're concerned about it and then he comes back and he's literally fine and he just ends up just like melting faces. I think Brock Bowers could do that. And considering the manager that drafted Brock Bowers probably has a losing record, they may not want to wait for Brock Bowers to get healthy. Whereas if you have a winning record, hey, I can take Brock Bowers out of your hands. I have already kind of figured out my tight end situation in the short term, whether I'm streaming somebody, I drafted Tyler Warren or Tucker Kraft, I'm good. But then you can bank Brock Bowers for the second half of the season. I think that's a sharp move to make.
By the way, that league I mentioned earlier where I have lost Neighbors and then for chunks of time, Lamb, Garrett Wilson, and Igbuka, I also have Brock Bowers.
And what's your record?
I think I'm 3. I forget. I think I'm 4-2.
Oh, wow. So that's
maybe
solid. I mean, considering all the injuries.
Drake Maye is carrying
that
team. I also have DeVonta, which has helped a lot.
Let's go.
Yeah, I know. I'm with you on Bowers. I actually don't even really have much to add there. I was distracted while you were talking that because I was just checking Twitter to make sure. I like to have Twitter up during the shows in case there's kind of breaking news or whatever. There's no breaking news here, but I was distracted by a tweet from a few hours ago that somebody quote tweeted about apparently Mike Vrabel said that the team's running backs are focusing, quote, too much on ball security. Has he watched Ramondre Stevenson? That might be the funniest headline I have ever seen.
Well, I mean, I guess it could mean that they're so scared to fumble the ball that they're like less focused on trying to hit the hole.
They're not getting their big plays, but like they are fumbling.
They're running scared, essentially.
Travion needs to fumble more to get on the field, is what I'm reading.
So translation, you got to fumble more.
It's like when you see those reports in preseason, I think this was like a year or two ago, about like Jalen Hurts isn't throwing enough interceptions in training camp because like he's not taking his chances. Trayvon Henderson isn't putting the ball on the ground enough in Mike Vrabel's eyes. That's wild. Okay, so buy Brock Bowers. Who are you selling at quarterback or tight end?
Sticking with tight ends here, Mark Andrews. I think that this is kind of the beginning of the end for Mark Andrews. Isaiah Likely has been back, and I know that we haven't really seen anybody pop off in the Ravens passing game without Lamar Jackson. I'm a little bit more optimistic about Lamar coming back than Worm is, and I think that Isaiah Likely is a potential sleeping giant at tight end. Mark Andrews has been rumored as a trade candidate dating back to the summer. If he gets dealt, we've seen this before with Isaiah Likely, where he ends up being a top 10, top 5 potential tight end option in this passing game. So if the Ravens defense continues to struggle, if Isaiah Likely ends up taking over the tight end 1 role in this offense, then I think it's wheels up for him and he's free across the board. So I think that he's an interesting stash candidate. And conversely, that means Mark Andrews is a sell. Again, I can't say confidently where he would get traded, if it would be an upgrade or not, but currently in his form on the Ravens, I mean, yeah, tush push aside, I just don't think he has a lot of upside. Again, touchdowns, I think he's touchdown or bust. And I just think that his role is limited, especially when Likely has been healthy. Likely outsnapped him this past week, ran more routes than Mark Andrews. So typically kind of what we saw last year when both guys were healthy. It was really tough for Andrews to produce consistently when Likely was healthy and in the lineup. So yeah, Mark Andrews always he's been a sell a couple times on this show. Worm, you're the Ravens guy. Am I wrong?
I mean, if you take away his fantastic week 3 against the Lions, he has reached 30 yards once this season, and it was just exactly 30 yards. He's the most touchdown or bust player ever. And unfortunately, the 2 touchdowns he has caught this season were in the game where he actually had yardage against the Lions. It all came in that great week 3 game. Somehow, just because of the nature of the position, he finished tight end 20 in week 4, despite getting 30 yards and no touchdowns because he had 7 catches. But his other finish is 52, 55, 34, 28. Like, this is not a playable guy in weeks where he doesn't get a touchdown. And I am worried about Lamar. The schedule is so light in the back half that there's a chance that he does a similar thing he did last year, where horrible first month and a half for different reasons, right? Like last year, we think it was because of the injury. This year, it's due to just the state of the team and maybe being another year older. It's possible he has a great finish because of the schedule, but I wouldn't be betting on it just because I am nervous about Lamar and the team in general. I'm nervous about the player. I'm nervous about Likely taking over. Like yes, I would trade on name value for Andrews. I want nothing to do with him.
Does Andrews finish his season on the Ravens? Yes or no?
I think he will. I don't think they're going to trade him.
Okay.
I could be wrong. Obviously, they traded Odafe Oweh, who's not, ingrained with the team as closely as Mark Andrews has been over the years. But, they have shown a willingness to make deals already. I wouldn't be surprised if there are more trades. I am betting that Andrews won't be one of them. Lamar loves Andrews, and they are going to give Lamar a contract extension this offseason. So I would imagine, he might not be here next year. And in fact, I would probably bet on him not being here next year. But I don't think they're going to trade him in season. I don't think Lamar would want that. I think the team views him as a part of the solution to turning around this 1-5 start, not as a part of the problem. So I would imagine he'll stay on the team.
What if the Chargers be like, hey, you want a defensive back?
They want to trade again.
Mark Andrews.
If they want to give Derwin James for Mark Andrews, I'd take it. But I'm not sure who else.
I could see Andrews going to the Chargers. Greg Roman's there. He knows Mark Andrews.
Yeah, I mean, in the offseason, yeah, I just don't think it'll happen in season.
We'll see.
Would be my guess. I don't know. I'm not an insider.
Trade wins are blowing.
Yeah. Let's do some buy, sell, or hold trios here. A couple wide receiver ones for you. Brian Thomas Jr. coming off a good game. Jalen Waddle, Zay Flowers, who's going into his bye week. So Brian Thomas Jr., Jalen Waddle, Zay Flowers. Buy, sell, or hold.
Man, I want to... Zay Flowers, Waddle, Brian Thomas Jr. Man, who do I want to buy the most? I think Zay Flowers is probably the guy you can get the cheapest, just depending on how he's viewed with Lamar being hurt. So I think he's probably the guy I would probably buy. I think he's the cheapest player, and I think that his rest of season outlook is pretty good. Again, I don't think that he is a top 10 guy, but I think it's solid rest of season. He's been good and efficient. I mean, even this last week when he was apparently playing with a shoulder injury, which was not true at all because he played 91% of the snaps. So that was annoying. But regardless, Zay Flowers would be the buy. I don't know. I don't really want to sell any of these guys. I like Waddle as the number one for Miami. Maybe he's the sell here just in case Miami just totally goes off the rails here with Tua, Mike McDaniel. If he gets fired, maybe this is how this offense kind of crumbles. So I think Waddle's kind of the most combustible. So maybe he's the guy that I would try to maybe sell high on. Again, and I'm a Waddle guy, but I mean, if you could flip Waddle for Ashton Genty, I think you need a running back. I think that's probably a move I would make. I think Waddle's good, but Miami you could see kind of getting off the rails here. And then Brian Thomas Jr. would be a hold for me. I think that he's been trending in the right direction. I don't know if you can buy him right now because I think the buy low window was a couple weeks ago. I know we talked about him as a buy low. He was one of my first buy lows, and I know it took a couple weeks, but finally started to hit. And I don't think that the Travis Hunter experience is putting a damper on what BTJ can do in this offense. So he would be the hold for me.
I think that's right. I mean, I've already talked enough about my thoughts on the Ravens and Lamar, so I don't need to go further into.
Hey, you're the one that put the Raven in the trio.
These trios are kind of hard to find names that we're not already talking about in the show that are ranked somewhat near each other. I know it's not a ranking, but I want to find guys that are kind of close-ish to each other. So sometimes you just and the other name I could have picked is Ladd McConkey, but we did him last week. So so it's you actually don't have as many names available.
And then the entire optics changed when Quinn Johnson got hurt.
Yeah,
and it all changed.
All right. Well, the next wide receiver trio: Chris Olave, Michael Pittman Jr., Xavier Worthy. Olave, Pittman, and Worthy. Buy, sell, or hold these three guys.
I am going to. I think you got to buy Chris Olave. His underlying metrics have been so good this year. He's wide receiver 4 and expected fantasy points per game. So he's offering this really high floor every single week. Will the ceiling ever be there for him? I don't think so. Just because of Spencer Rattler. It's so funny. He always has games where he'll either go 100 yards or score a touchdown, but they'll never be in the same game. Ever. It's just it's like a forbidden stat line that Chris Olave will never have. Is just a full, complete game. So his ceiling is always capped, but his usage is off the charts. He's also a guy that could also get traded too. He's been kind of thrown into some trades, so maybe that's how he gets unlocked a little bit further if he ends up with a good quarterback. But Olave would probably be the buy for me. I don't think his price is egregious either. I think for Worthy and Pittman would probably be the hold for me. Again, he's coming off a bad week, but Daniel Jones has been balling out. And I think that Pittman can flirt with double-digit touchdowns this season. And Worthy would probably be the sell. I think that when Rice comes back, that matters dramatically for how this offense shakes out. And Worthy, although had really one good, strong game in Rice's absence, this was kind of his chance to capitalize and establish himself. And unfortunately, the shoulder injury kind of set him back. And the impact he has on the Chiefs offense goes beyond just him getting the ball as a field stretcher. And I think that the Chiefs have gotten enough from guys like Thornton and Marquise Brown that maybe it doesn't all go to Worthy and Rashee Rice. So Worthy would probably be the sell.
I think I'd rather hold Worthy just to see. And maybe that is waiting too long and I'll miss my chance to sell and get something of real value. But like, I want to see it. The last time we saw him on the field at the same time as Rice, he had played 3 games in his NFL career. This is a different player. Rice, again, I keep saying this, like, I know we're very far removed from the injury. You never know what kind of rust guys are going to have to shake off coming back from an injury that was season ending and severe. So I think I just want to see it. Like, I don't want to sell Worthy until I know more about what that's going to look like, I think.
No, I think that's a good point. I think that maybe I would flip-flop then. So hold Worthy, and then, again, I like Michael Pittman, but I would say the last couple of weeks, Josh Downs has been getting more involved. So that would be a concern for those that are invested in Pittman. I think Pittman's a really good receiver, but, is Daniel Jones going to support Tyler Warren and Pittman and Josh Downs every single week? Like, probably not. Again, if there's anyone that's going to support multiple assets, it would probably be Mahomes. So I think you've kind of changed my tune a little bit here. Maybe Pittman would be the sell high. And again, he's sell high in his exercise. I don't think that he's a player like you have to get off your roster. But between these 3 other players, I think when you're looking at the cost and like the market value of the players, Pittman would probably be the sell.
At quarterback, Caleb Williams, Daniel Jones, Jordan Love. Buy, sell, or hold Caleb, Jones, and Love.
I think I'm going to buy Caleb Williams. I think that he has the most upside rest of season. Again, a second-year quarterback making the leap. You're starting to see things positive for the offense. They just beat the Commanders. I think it's a relatively good schedule rest of season for I talked about it with Swift and his schedule being favorable. I think that works for the quarterback. He uses his legs. He scores rushing touchdowns. So I think Caleb Williams would be my buy. Jordan Love is my hold. I think that the Packers are just going to have opportunities to score so many points in a lot of their games. They have a really good schedule rest of season. So I think Jordan Love for me is probably the guy I would just hold. Again, he doesn't run a lot, but I think he's one of the few pocket passers I feel confident like playing in fantasy, where even if he doesn't add a ton with his legs, although he did add a decent amount last week, I think he's probably my hold. And actually, Daniel Jones would be my sell. I guess this kind of goes in kind of hand-holding with Michael Pittman Jr., but this is from the FantasyPros strength of schedule tool. The Colts have the worst schedule rest of season for quarterbacks. So if we're kind of like splitting hairs, maybe that's a reason to sell high on Daniel Jones.
Caleb, his schedule is actually very easy to navigate.
Okay.
Buy him now because the next 3 games are New Orleans, Baltimore, Cincinnati.
Sweet.
But then from week 11 on, if you're going to sell, that's when it is. At Minnesota, Pittsburgh, at Philly, at Green Bay, Cleveland, Green Bay, at San Francisco is how he ends the season.
So penciling in our week 12 buy low, sell high show.
Yes.
Caleb Williams, quarterback. Editors, this one's on you. We're just going to play this clip and then we'll be good.
Yes, you're welcome for getting it done early. All right, tight end trio to wrap things up. Harold Fannin, Mason Taylor, now with Garrett Wilson missing some time, and Kyle Pitts, who we talked about a little when we were recapping the Monday night game in part 1 of this episode. Again, that's Fannin, Taylor, and Pitts. Buy, sell, or hold at tight end.
Selling Kyle Pitts. He had his chance. He blew it. So I'm
do you think you can get anything for him?
I don't care. Exactly. I'm selling. I don't sell him to the waiver wire. Great. So, selling Kyle Pitts. Mason Taylor, I'm going to hold. I know that last week was so tilting. It just looked like he was teed up. But now I don't know how this guy's not going to see double-digit
Who is going to
target.
catch passes?
Dude, the receivers on the Jets are just comically bad. Josh Reynolds, Arian Smith. I can't even name the next guy. Alan Lazard, he was hurt last week. So Mason Taylor has been the only other player that's seen like double-digit targets on the Jets offense beside Garrett Wilson. And if he's going to miss the next couple weeks, Mason Taylor's going to have some type of volume, and I think that that's good enough in fantasy. So not necessarily, I don't know what the ceiling
is. They only have. I use Our Lads as to check the depth charts on Our Lads for the Jets. They only have Reynolds, Garrett Wilson, Arian Smith, Alan Lazard, and Tyler Johnson. Those are the only names on there. Usually there's like 6 or 7 of them at least.
Yeah, see, the Jets are another team that could trade for a wide receiver, and that will nuke their potential fantasy value. Oh, actually, so
Man.
You know who actually they could actually end up trading for? Would be actually Chris Olave, another guy that used to play with Justin Fields.
Yeah.
At Ohio State.
Get Olave and Garrett Wilson in the same.
And then they would just and then they would
together.
nuke both their fantasy values.
That'd be great.
Oh, that'd be terrible. Please don't let that happen. That would be bad. But I'm gonna hold Mason Taylor and then buy Harold Fannin. I think of all the kind of real life trades that we've talked about, I think David Njoku getting dealt is a real thing. David Njoku's also hurt. So Harold Fannin, to me, he's outproduced Njoku in most of their games they've played together. Dylan Gabriel loves to target the tight end position. So at home this week against the Miami Dolphins, great matchup. I will take Harold Fannin, who has, he's impressed as a rookie tight end through 6 games. I think he has a connection with Gabriel. So I will go with Fannin as a buy.
All right, we'll wrap things up there. If you missed part 1, check it out on YouTube or wherever you get your audio podcasts. We talked about running backs and Monday Night Football recap on that episode. Hope you enjoyed today's episodes. Best of luck going into Week 7. Make those trades for Erickson. I'm Ryan Wormley. We'll see you again next time.